So while looking at the structure of Indian society, we get to notice this one thing, that the majority of people who are on top, or who exist on the top or the hierarchy, for example, they are the highest civil servant in administrative service, or politician. They all have this one thing in common, that they their previous generation, their father or their mother, or their upbringing had this one element of sameness, or this one element of commonness in it. For example, it is really high likely to be a son of civil servant to be a civil servant. So why does that happen? So there's this one guy named Perrie Bourdieu. He's a French scholar, French sociologist. He noticed this one thing. So what he said, that when people talk about capitalism, or when people talk about meritocracy, they tend to ignore this one fact, that they are thinking that meritocracy promotes equal opportunity for all, but it doesn't. So what happens in meritocracy is that there are people who are advantageous, and then there are people who are really suppressed, who really lives in downtrodden of society. So they can't be equated. So this is what he was saying. So he gives this one idea, habitus and cultural capital. So what he was saying essentially was, there are some things which are habituous, which are internalized in all of us. Me, you, your father, your mother, your friend, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your partner. Everyone have this one thing that's in us, that is part of our upbringing. For example, the accent in which I'm talking, whether that may be the popular English accent of mine, or the convent accent. For example, the elites, the kind of accent that elites speak. For example, the South Bombay or South Delhi accent. So these things are not just, they don't just show the economic value of the person, but they show their cultural capital. How well read, or what their social status is. For example, if I come to you and I speak in I speak like, or I say, okay, ka ho kaisan ho? So that would give you impression that I must be belonging to, say, some rural area where I have no education, or where I am lacking in education, or my society is really backward. Or when I come to you and say, hey, how are you? So that would give you impression that I'm bilingual, I know more than one language. That means my social status is not really that downtrodden. So this was the fact that Perrie Bourdieu was talking about. He said that these habitus that we are talking about, they are really unconscious element of our life. Our accent, our language, the way that we articulate things, the way that I think of something must not be the way that a poor person or really rich person thinks of. For example, maybe I value money only because I value money moderately, that I think this amount of money is necessary for our survival, and any more amount other than this is just a waste. It's just an obsolete thing. But a poor person would think that, okay, this amount of money is necessary for me, whereas a rich person would think, okay, no, this amount of money is necessary for me. So these habits are ingrained in us from our upbringings. And then he moves to this other concept of his named as cultural capital. So what he says in cultural capital is, he essentially criticized Karl Marx, for saying that you have reduced everything to economic value only, but it's not the case. There are more elements to it other than economic value. For example, this culture capital of his contains three elements: economic value, social status, and institutional value. Economic value contains your how rich you are, what's the income of your father or yours, do you have a family business, do you own a bank, are you a Jew? These things are a part of our economic capital. economic value, economic capital. Then there is social capital. Social capital is how well connected you are. What's your reach? Are you connected to Donald Trump? Are you connected to Modi? Are you connected to any administrative or any person who is in administrative services? This is social status, social value, social status. Then institutional value. Institutional value is a value when, I mean, what league you belong in. For example, have you studied in Delhi University, or you are just a product of any tier 3 college? So that would give an impression that how well read or how articulated you are. So these things, what Bourdieu said, that because someone has this habitus, because people have this habitus, they tend to go more into these cultural capital which are which coincide with their habitus, and thus they tend to success more. For example, any person, people who are on top, people who are on top, who are making decisions for us, when they recruit people, they recruit based on these qualities that they prefer. They prefer people with good accent. They prefer people who can articulate really well. They prefer people who thinks in accordance with their view. So what they want are these three kind of people. And let me ask you this thing, that these people who are on top, what kind of children or what kind of offspring they would produce? They would produce essentially the same kind of people that they are looking for. And in the name of meritocracy, what qualities that they look for are the same qualities that they produce. And it's not a fair game. If I say that I'm giving this this lottery, and then I secretly come and tell my kid that okay, number 17 is a lucky number and you go pick number 17, and when you will pick that, and then I'll say it was a meritocracy. I give equal opportunities for all. Everyone was fortunate enough, everyone had this ticket, but it was by luck that my kid was selected. Because my kid was selected, it wasn't about his capability only, it was about what I gave to him initially. So this is why people who argue for equal opportunities are somewhere a critique of meritocracy, because they know that meritocracy doesn't produce equitable society, but on the contrary, meritocracy produces society which propagates inequality. The condition in India is really bewildering. For example, so the economic everything everything else is same. About the culture capital part, so in culture capital, Indian culture capital has these three things which are same: economic value, social value, and institutional value. The economic value is same for everyone, that what's your economic status, how rich your parents were, how much are you earning. The social capital of India contains element of caste, people whom you are connected with. So what Bourdieu in his European mindset, he said that your economic value defines your social value, but it doesn't happen in India. In India, your economic value defines your social value, but there is this one other equation that also defines your social value, and that is your caste. That's why people who are on top tend to prefer people from their own caste, not just because of economic value, or not because they share same economic value, but they share this one component, caste. And that's why reservation is necessary.